Chapter 6:14. At the same time, he lets out a beast-like angry roar. Gong Qinshue, you evil creature, killing your father and mother like this, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning and retribution? Gong Qinshue lifts the corner of her mouth, smiling faintly. Retribution. This consort is a woman of destiny. I will only climb to the peak and rule over everyone. How could there be any retribution? Imperial father, just obediently go, don't worry about your daughter anymore. When your daughter becomes empress, I will definitely make Zhui Feng the retired emperor. Whoosh! Another arrow mixed with powerful internal force shoots out, instantly piercing Gong Yanhai's chest. He holds the arrow in his chest, shaking it unwillingly, and lets out a roar before his death. Jingqing country's army, listen to my order, kill the traitor. Gong Qinshue. Bang! Gong Yanhai's corpse falls to the yellow ground, but his eyes are wide open, unwaveringly staring at Gong Qinshue above, as if he wants to swallow her alive. He died with everlasting regret. From the beginning to the end, Jun Mayan and the Nether Flame Army just watched Gong Qinshue's frenzied performance, not participating in it. However, looking at the woman on the city gate tower, who looks like a peach, but has a heart like a snake and scorpion, they only feel a chill. How could a person be vicious to this extent? Even the lives of her own biological parents, she doesn't care at all. Ha 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 ha. Gong Qinshue puts away the arrow in her hand, her whole person bursting with energy, insolent and proud. Jun Mayan, now, the chips in your hands are completely gone, but your father's life is still in my hands. I'd like to see what other methods you have to fight against me. Mayan slightly frowns, not speaking. Ru Yan anxiously says, Miss, what should we do? Why don't we rush forward and rescue Master? Mayan shakes her head, rejecting this plan. Because Gong Qinshue's blade is too close to Shen Father. A little carelessness, and Shen Father might lose his life on the spot. Gong Qinshue can disregard her father's life. But Mayan can't. What's more, Dr. Song and the others haven't been rescued yet. Gong Qinshue, tell me, what do you want? Mayan coldly asks. This time, the situation could be said to be completely reversed. The expression on Gong Qinshue's face became even more savage and carefree as she said loudly, I want you to chop off your wrists right now, cripple your qi and cultivation, then come over and become my captive. I wonder if you cherish your own life more than your father's. Ha ha ha. How dare you? You want to cripple Mrs. Cultivation. Dream on. Hearing Gong Qinshue's words, the entire Nether Flame Army exploded. Yan Haotian and the others revealed ominous glints in their eyes, wishing that they could fly over right now and dismember Gong Qinshue's corpse into 1,000 pieces. The Shen Father has a face full of shame as he resolutely runs towards the blade, wanting to mutilate himself in exchange for Mayan's victory. However, Gong Qinshuе grabbed his hair and stepped on him pathetically. Jun Mayan, I'll count to 3. If you haven't crippled your own cultivation and chopped off your hands, then don't blame me for messing up your father's qi and chopping off his 4 limbs. 1. 2. Mayan takes a step forward. Okay, however, what's even faster than her is an ice, cold, but crisp, little childish voice, I'll be your captive. The air froze in a split second. Mayan jerks her head back, looking at her baby son behind her. The people of the ink camp also look over, revealing an aghast expression. Chapter 6:15. Xiao Bao didn't look at her, but walked step by step to the edge of the lookout, looking at Gong Qinshuo in the distance. If I were to be a captive, I should be better than mother. Young master. Little master, what nonsense are you talking about? How could you put yourself in danger? Xiao Bao glanced at them coldly. He clearly didn't release any pressure, but he was born with the temperament of a monarch. In an instant, everyone on the observation deck was speechless. On the city wall, when Gong Qinshue saw Xiao Bao walking over, her eyes suddenly lit up, as if there was a burning flame of greed burning in them. Immortal physique, that was the immortal physique. She giggled. Are you really willing to become my captive? Jun Machin, come back here. Mu Yan's complexion turned deathly pale. She took a step forward, as if she wanted to pull Xiao Bao back. However, Xiao Bao turned around to look at her and murmured, Mother, Xiao Bao can't just watch you hurt yourself. After saying that, without waiting for Mu Yan to stop him, his small figure had already soared into the sky, and then steadily landed on the opposite city wall. The distance between the watchtower and the city wall was actually quite far. Xiao Bao was only a 4 or 5-year-old child, yet he was able to fly over effortlessly. This immediately shocked many people. But Gong Qinshue was not surprised at all. Because back in the misty forest, she had already witnessed this child's shocking talent. A 4-year-old beginner heaven rank. He was only 1 or 2 small realms lower than her. At that time, Gong Qinshue was still full of shock and amazement, but now she didn't feel it was strange at all. That was a celestial physique. Wasn't it a given that he had such talent? And it was precisely because of the immortal physique's outstanding talent that her cultivation was able to undergo such a drastic change after she swallowed it. Looking at the little child who had landed in front of her, Gong Qinshue couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Why aren't you coming over? Come over to my side. Xiao Bao frowned and said in a grown-up tone, Don't try to trick me. I'm using myself to exchange for Grandpa. If you want me to go over, release my grandfather first. Otherwise, I will immediately jump down from here. Gong Qinshue glances at the Shen father at her feet. Indeed, compared to the immortal physique, this old fart Shinicheng was useless. As long as she has the immortal spirit body, how could Jun Mayan ignore her own son? Gong Qinshue gave her subordinate a look. Immediately, 2 innates and 4 to 5 heaven-rank black-clothed men surrounded Xiao Bao. Someone even grabbed little Bao's arm to prevent him from jumping off the tower. Xiao Bao obediently didn't resist, but his big blue eyes stubbornly looked at Gong Qinshue, waiting for her to fulfill the agreement. Gong Qinshue chuckles lowly, lifting her foot to give the Shen father a kick, directly kicking him down from the city gate tower. With the immortal physique, what use would Shinicheng have? What's more, she still has Jun Mayan's subordinates and dozens of doctors in her hands. Gong Qinshue grinned maliciously as she walked towards Xiao Bao step by step. All right, little friend, I've already fulfilled my promise and released him. Now, it's time for you to come into my arms. She walked over to Xiao Bao and reached out to pull him into her arms. He had already prepared the elixir that his senior brother had given him. Once this elixir was taken, even a pre-celestial powerhouse would be powerless from head to toe, unable to use internal force. After all, she hadn't forgotten that Xiao Bao was a heaven-rank expert. Chapter 6:16. Just as her hand is about to touch Xiao Bao's arm, Xiao Bao's little face suddenly lifts up, revealing a delicate snow jade complexion, and a pair of clear and cold blue eyes with a hint of ridicule. Auntie, you're so much older than my mother, and you still call yourself an older sister. Don't you have any shame? Gong Qinshue's face suddenly stiffens. There's a roar in her mind, only the words, auntie, old, reverberate in her mind. Soon after, she sees the little figure in front of her soar up to the sky, and ruthlessly slaps her on the chest. Gong Qinshue only feels that the internal force of 15 kilograms is like a boulder pressing down on her chest. She gives a muffled groan, and suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. Quickly catch this little bastard for me. A hysterical scream pierces the sky. The black-clothed men on top of the city wall all fly towards Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao coldly snorts in disdain, and with a fierce stomp of his feet, he soars into the sky. His little body flies up into the air. Immediately after, he sees a white light shoot out from the direction of the watchtower, wrapping around his waist and directly pulling him back. Xiao Bao throws himself into Mu Yan's arms all of a sudden, hugging her neck and gently rubbing against it. Soon after, he raises his head, his big eyes flickering, revealing an expression of seeking praise. Nyangqin, was Xiao Bao's performance good? Baby, you're amazing. Mu Yan isn't stingy with her praise, and kisses him on his tender little cheek. Thank you for saving grandfather. Nyangqin is proud of you. Xiao Bao's lips are lightly pursed, but the tips of his eyebrows and the corners of his eyes are slightly raised, carrying a rarely seen childlike cheerfulness. Mu Yan tightly hugs the baby in her arms, and the fear in her heart slowly recedes. Even though she knew what her baby was going to do the moment Xiao Bao came out, and she also knew that her baby would definitely succeed. But by the nature of a mother and son, when Xiao Bao flew to the top of the opposite city wall, her heart had almost jumped out of her throat. She was afraid that her baby would suffer even a little bit of harm. Fortunately, her Xiao Bao, her child, is even more formidable and outstanding than she had imagined. Yen, Xiao Bao, I'm sorry, I've dragged you down. Shini Cheng, who was rescued by the people from the ink camp, shows a guilty expression. Mu Yan crouches down and feeds him another elixir. She softly says, Father, we are relatives, family. There's no such thing as implicating or not. You have to take good care of your body. Big Brother is still waiting for you to return to Hellflame Valley. Good. Yen, I really didn't expect that you would grow to this stage one day. Tears streamed down Shinicheng's old face, and he warned Mu Yan to be careful before he was sent away. Mu Yan looks at Gong Qinxue, who is so angry that she's about to faint. She chuckles. How does it feel to have your internal organs injured by a 4-year-old child? Gong Qinxue. Ha, saying that Yenmu Continent's #1 genius is simply the biggest joke. You can't even beat our little master. Exactly. In the future, don't call yourself the #1 genius. Call yourself the #1 idiot or the #1 old hag. TSK. She's so much older and uglier than our miss, yet she still has the nerve to call herself big sister. I'm getting goosebumps all over my body. Ha, Gong Qinxue simply wants to go crazy. Several times, she wants to throw caution to the wind and rush out, but she's held back by her subordinates. Chapter 617. Someone come. Bring that group of doctors and Jun Mayan's subordinates here. Slut, you think that after rescuing Shini Cheng, I won't be able to do anything to you? Don't forget, I still have a lot of hostages in my hands. This time, I'd like to see how you're going to save him, slut. Very soon, dozens more people are dragged up. Each and every one of these people has disheveled hair, bloody noses and swollen faces, their faces hard to distinguish. But just by looking at the clothes they're wearing, you can recognize that they're Dr. Song and the others, as well as the soldiers of the ink camp, as well as the young staff of the Junji Medical Center. Gong Qinxue's eyes are filled with crazy hatred. She doesn't even give Mayan the same mental torture she did when she questioned the Shin father just now. Instead, she directly drags a person over, and cuts off his hands with a knife. Soon after, the blade is pressed against the man's neck, and she lets out an ear-piercing laugh. Jun Mayan, do you see that? These people are still in my hands. Don't tell me you don't care about their lives. Could it be that you have the heart to watch these innocent people die for you? Mayan smiles faintly, and carelessly says, Really? I really want to see it. Gong Qinxue suddenly widens her eyes, as if she doesn't believe that Mayan would say such words. Good, it seems that you really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Gong Qinxue bellows, and at the same time, the knife in her hand falls down, chopping off the head of the man in her hands, cut off half of their hands and feet for me. Woo, woo, the dozen or so people who are caught simultaneously let out painful groans, but they don't know why they can't speak. But Gong Chinchue has already been completely overwhelmed by anger at this time, and she simply doesn't notice that anything is wrong. As soon as she gives the order, the dozen or so heads thud to the ground. Gong Chinchue's face is splattered with blood, and she grins nastily. Do you see that, Jun Mayan? These people died for you. If you still don't surrender, Ben Gong will also kill the remaining half. These people have pledged their loyalty to you to the death. Let them die innocently for you. Do you have a conscience? Ha! Mayan lets out a low laugh. Gong Chinchue, even your conscience feels sorry. How could I feel sorry? After all, these people aren't loyal to me, but you. No matter what, they used to give their all for you. I didn't expect that they would end up like this. Gong Chinchue suddenly opened her eyes wide and said in disbelief, What did you say? She seemed to have suddenly thought of something and suddenly pounced in front of the head that she had just chopped off. She pushed aside her messy hair. However, it was not Dr. Song's face that was revealed, but her trusted subordinate. Ah! This was impossible. This is impossible. Gong Chinchue madly rushed over and pushed aside everyone's messy hair, only to discover that none of these people were the hostages she thought they were. On the contrary, every single one of them was her confidant, her strength that she relied on. But now, half of them had been killed by her. As for the remaining half, their stomachs were bulging and they were on the brink of death. Their flesh and blood would be devoured by the goo at any time. Jun Mayan, it's you. You're the one behind this. What did you do? However, no one on the observation deck paid attention to her hysterical roar. Dr. Song and the others, riddled with scars, have already been brought over. Following behind them is Han Yi. Chapter 618. He can't do anything that would destroy the balance of the Yenwu continent. However, it was very easy for him to do these little things that didn't matter much. Dr. Song and the rest were currently in a deep sleep. The goo worms in their abdomens had been taken out, and their lives were no longer in danger. However, it would take a long time to replenish the blood and essence that had been sucked away by the goo. After Mu Yen confirms that they're all right, she looks at Han Yi. Thank you very much this time. Madam, don't be so polite. Han Yi smiles. Sooner or later, we'll all be one family. Madam's business is our business. Cough, cough. Seeing Mayan's unkind gaze, Han Yi immediately changes the subject, and this time, it really isn't all my credit. Seeming to have thought of something, the light in Han Ye's eyes slightly sinks. His line of sight shifts towards the ink camp, who have also been rescued. When I went to save them, it was already too late. A few doctors couldn't hold on any longer. The gold silkworm goo larvae were about to break out of their bodies. At that time, even if I bring him back, he will only be a corpse. But strangely, one night, all the golden silkworm larvae suddenly fell into a deep sleep, as if they were on the verge of death. Dormant. Mu Yen slightly frowns, revealing a puzzled expression. Will the golden silkworm goo fall into a deep sleep? Han Yi says, We, the people of the polar domain, don't know much about the art of medical goo and poison. We're not very clear about it. But I know that most goo worms will fall into a short slumber after being attacked by the extreme cold. It was also because these goo worms were in deep slumber that I was able to smoothly extract these goo worms and place them in the bodies of Gong Chinchue's subordinates. What's strange is that the moment these goo worms entered the bodies of Gong Chinchue's subordinates, they immediately woke up and started to suck their flesh and blood. Mu Yen looks pensive. You mean, someone is helping us? Did you find out who they are? Han Ye's gaze turns towards the direction of the ink camp. He moves his lips, seemingly wanting to say something, but in the end, he swallows it back down. After a brief conversation with Han Yi, Mayan walks towards Chang Yu and the others. This time, when Tianyuan City was robbed, it wasn't only the doctors, Shen Father, and Shen Jinglin who were injured, but also these people from the Yin camp who had risked their lives to follow her. In order to protect the Shen Father and Shen Jinglin, they stubbornly resisted, and in the end, more than half of them died. There were less than 30 of them left. Seeing Mayan approaching, the eyes of everyone in the Yin camp brightened. Chang Yu's eyes were the brightest. They all knelt down and said in a hoarse voice, "Greetings, Miss." Mu Yan looked at these subordinates who were riddled with scars but had no regrets. Her heart was filled with an indescribable emotion and sourness. She wanted to apologize. Because he was the one who had implicated them. But in the end, she only said softly, "You guys are very good. The Ink Camp, the Netherflame Army, me and Xiaobao, we are all proud of you." More than 20 people abruptly raised their heads, and their eyes instantly reddened. Complex and passionate emotions flashed across their bruised faces. Most of them were the first to follow Mayan. After being abandoned in Wanrenku, the words they heard the most were trash, beasts, and trash. In the past, they had abandoned themselves to despair and were cruel and bloodthirsty. Once upon a time, they were abandoned in a corner of the world, and no one cared about their lives or the value of their existence. But now, they finally found the faith to survive. Chapter 6:19. Willing to go through water and tread on fire for Miss and Master, without hesitation. Willing to go through water and tread on fire, without hesitation. The corners of Mayan's lips gently curve up, not moving. Xiao Bao steps forward, helping the 20 people up one by one. Being personally helped up by those fair and tender little hands, hearing Xiao Bao's childish voice calling out their names, saying, "Welcome back." 7 feet of sweat, but each and every one of them is brimming with tears. Only Chang Yu goes in front of Mayan, a pair of dark eyes greedily looking at the girl's beautiful profile without blinking. However, when Mayan turns around, he quickly lowers his head, concealing all the emotions in his heart. "Miss, I'm sorry, it was my incompetence that caused the Ink Camp to suffer such heavy losses." The man's hoarse voice of self-blame makes Mayan's expression soften, and she tenderly looks at him. But strangely, she doesn't know why, but she feels that Chang Yu's appearance seems to have changed a little. It seems that compared to his previous ordinary appearance that couldn't be recognized in a crowd of people, he's become a lot more handsome and good-looking. But looking closely, she feels that those eyebrows and eyes are exactly the same. Unexpectedly, she recalls the time when she was painting. At that time, she felt that Chang Yu's body and face were very out of place together. The lines of his body are very graceful, so much so that it can be said that he has a masculine charm that can make people's blood boil. But that face is like a passerby that can be caught anywhere. However, Mayan quickly throws this thought to the back of her mind. After returning to Hellfire Valley, you will gather the people again and form a team of the Ink Camp. You will always be the Ink Camp's first captain. Chang Yu's gaze jumps, as if there's a blazing emotion that's about to gush out. He purses his lips, and only after a long while does he say, "So miss, can I still stay by your," and the little master's side? "Of course." Mayan curls up the corners of her mouth and smiles. "It hasn't even been 5 years, and you already want to leave." "No. As long as Miss and Little Master don't mind, this subordinate is willing to follow you for a lifetime." Chang Yu's reply was resolute and decisive. His lowered eyes hid too many emotions. Not far away, Han Yi glances at Chang Yu, slightly narrowing his eyes, his expression unfathomable. Just then, Gong Qinshua's hysterical roar is heard from the other side. "Jun Mayan, do you think you've won like this? Don't forget. I still have thousands of men and horses." Even without hostages, I can still trample all of you into meat patties. Slut, if you have the guts, then fight my army head-on. Mu Yan raises her head and looks at Gong Qinshue across from her, revealing a mocking and disdainful smile. Face off. Gong Qinshue, don't you know that I've waited for this moment for a very long time? Nether Flame Army, listen up. A clear shout came out unhurriedly. In an instant, shouts of agreement that were like a tsunami resounded from the surroundings of heaven-departing city. Ink Camp, heed my order. Heavenly Secret Battalion, heed my command. Longevity Battalion, heed my command. As you command, young miss. Mu Yan slowly sits down cross-legged, her fingers lightly plucking the strings of the zither. Her gaze sweeps over the thousands of soldiers and horses below, as well as Gong Qinshue's ferocious face on the opposite side. Then, she gently and lazily spat out the word given, kill. Clang! The sound of the zither suddenly rose in pitch, turning into the roar of mountains and tsunamis, the shaking of the earth, the shattering of the heavens and the splitting of the earth. As for the three Nether Flame Army, they seemed to have received instructions and roared in unison. Chapter 620. On the city wall, Gong Qinshue looked at this scene and revealed a crazy smile. She kept muttering, I won't lose. How could I lose? My people are many times more than that bitch's subordinates. That's right, that bitch will definitely lose miserably. At that time, she will crawl under my feet and be trampled on and slaughtered by me. However, Gong Qinshue didn't know. There is a profession called Shin musician in this world. Why are the people of the Shushin continent so afraid of the Shin musicians? Because that was truly a heaven-defying existence. Not only could she make herself stronger, but she could also make the people around her stronger. But at the same time, it could infinitely weaken the enemy's advantage on the battlefield. Graceful Feather was activated. The enemies were locked onto one by one. 1, 2, 3, 100, 1,000, 10,000, Mayan's complexion begins to turn pale inch by inch, but her eyes are incomparably bright. Like the most dazzling star in the summer night sky. In this life, her hatred, her resentment, her pain, and her despair would all come to an end today, at this moment. To put an end to it with his own hands. 10,000 Jingqing country soldiers were locked on. 20,000 Jingqing country corps soldiers were locked on. 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, bright red blood oozes from the corner of Mayan's mouth. Little Treasure's hands were clenched into fists as tears welled up in his blue eyes. But he didn't say anything, nor did he move. Because Xiao Bao understands his mother better than anyone else. He knew that when his mother showed that kind of expression, it meant that she was determined not to turn back, and wouldn't let anyone change her mind. The intense music slowly became gentle and melodious. And when the sound of the zither finally reduced to a sobbing, almost inaudible sound. Yan Haotian, Ru Yan and Feng Haitang all stepped forward. They are separately facing the Ink Camp, the Tianji Camp and the Longevity Camp on the east, south and west. A silk banner had appeared in his hand, and he was waving it in the air. Boom! The appearance of this banner was like a signal, igniting the Nether Flame Army's originally suppressed fighting spirit. On the contrary, it's the army of Jingqing country. At this moment, they suddenly felt as if their hands and feet were filled with lead. The Xian Qi in his body seemed to be frozen by the cold, unable to circulate. What was more important was their heart and their will. Just now, they had witnessed Gong Qinshue's brutality and rebellion with their own eyes. This woman is insane, using the innocent people of Jingqing country to raise those terrible goo insects. She even killed her own father with her own hands. Was such a woman really worthy of their loyalty? All the soldiers had the thought of retreating and the fatigue of slacking off. Their eyes were drowsy, and they couldn't lift their hands or move their feet. They couldn't wait to fall asleep. Mu Yan's face was deathly pale. Looking at the scene below, she revealed a smile of understanding. This was the reason why she tried every possible way to force Gong Qinshue to reveal her true colors. Although Graceful Feather was very powerful. However, this was an army of nearly 100,000 soldiers. It was almost impossible to use Feather Grace to lock onto all the enemies at the same time and weaken their strength and willpower. But what if these people had already aroused doubt towards Gong Qinshue and had the intention to rebel? Chapter 621. One side's momentum is like a rainbow, sweeping away all obstacles. The other side is muddle-headed, not advancing but retreating instead. In this way, even if there's a huge disparity in strength, the final outcome is clear at a glance. The war lasted for an entire hour. Finally, the dust settles. The Nether Flame army lined up in a neat formation, bringing the enemy's heads, pressing down the captives, and wrapping up their spoils of war, returning to their original positions. And what about the entire 100,000 Jingqing army? But in this hour, some escaped, some died, and some were captured. In the end, not a single one was left. On the city wall of Litian City, Gong Qinshue's whole body is trembling. Her complexion is even paler than Mu Yan's. Suddenly, Gong Qinshue let out a shrill scream, fleeing down the city wall in panic and embarrassment. Mu Yan coldly watches this scene, and waves her hand, "Attack the city." After a short quarter of an hour, Litian City has completely changed hands. This isn't because the strength of the Nether Flame army has really reached such a level. Rather, at this moment, Gong Qinshue has already lost the hearts of everyone. Almost at the moment when Mu Yan gave the order to attack, the common people of Litian City had already rebelled and opened the city gates. The Nether Flame army marched straight in. Under the guidance of the common people of Litian City, they found Gong Qinshue and her confidant, who wanted to escape from the underground palace. Mu Yan looks at the woman being escorted by the ink camp in front of her, her gaze somewhat complicated. In her memory, Gong Qinshue was always aloof, cold and arrogant. But now, the woman being forced to kneel in front of her has disheveled hair, ragged clothes, and is in a sorry state like a beggar. "Jun Mu Yan, you dare to touch me. I'm the princess of Jingqing country, a distinguished disciple of the Heavenly Road sect, and the person that Senior Jian Feng admires. No, you don't dare to kill me. If you kill me, all of you will die. Senior Jian Feng will never let you off." Not waiting for her to finish shouting, Guanhu has already grabbed her hair and slapped her face 4 times in a row. "Lousy hit you, let's see what you can do to me." Gong Qinshue's face instantly swells like a pig's head. Her eyes were about to spit fire. They were filled with resentment, but there was also a hint of fear. Mu Yan slowly crouches down, looking at her with an expressionless face. "Gong Qinshue, in your entire life, you've schemed and schemed, treating everyone as chess pieces and stepping stones. For what? Just to fulfill your wish of becoming an immortal and ascending to the immortal realm." Gong Qinshue gritted her teeth and said, "I am the proud daughter of heaven, the darling of fate. You ants being able to become my stepping stones is your honor. What right do you have to resist me?" Mu Yan narrows her eyes. Yes. In her previous life, Gong Qinshue was truly the darling of heaven and earth. After obtaining the sacred beast egg, she refined her most beloved Xiaobao into a pill and consumed it. She was favored by Jian Feng and became a disciple of the Heavenly Road sect. She also inherited the imperial power of Jingqing country. Even the ghost city is under her control. It could be said that most of the Yanwu continent has fallen into her hands. It was her own stupidity and flesh and blood that allowed her to finally refine her body and soul and achieve perfect ascension. However, God gave her a chance to be reborn. This time, her baby is alive and well by her side. She didn't lose any of her relatives or friends. And Gong Qinshue and her positions have been completely swapped. Chapter 622. When Gong Qinshue sees the smile on her face, an inexplicable chill runs up her spine, and her body shudders. Mayan doesn't seem to notice her reaction at all, continuing, "There's no such draft in the Yanwu continent, so I gave it a name, Blue Sky Underworld Powder. As for its effects, it's very similar to the White Jade Purple Frost Powder. After taking it, it will deprive you of your cultivation bit by bit, eventually making you return to a mortal who can't even use internal force." Gong Qinshue's eyes widen, revealing a frightened expression. But she hears Mayan continue, "But the effects of Blue Sky Underworld Powder are much more interesting than the White Jade Purple Frost Powder. Because White Jade Purple Frost Powder still has an antidote, its effects are also reversible. But Blue Sky Underworld Powder, its effects are irreversible, because it not only deprives you of your cultivation, but also your spiritual root talent." Gong Qinshue's lips tremble, her hoarse voice coming out with difficulty. June Mayan, what do you want to do?" "I don't want to do anything." Mayan slightly tilts her head, revealing a bright and beautiful smile. "Didn't you say that you're a proud daughter of heaven, the darling of fate? Then let's see, when your talent disappears bit by bit, even the spiritual root that you'll condense in the future to temper your body and refine your soul, what kind of darling can you become?" "No. Slut, you can't do this to me. I'm Gong Qinshuo. I'm the one who wants to become the #1 ruler of the Yanwu continent, you can't." Before Gong Qinshuo could finish screaming in horror and despair, she feels a chill in her mouth. The ice-cold liquid has already rolled down her throat. Gong Qinshuo fiercely grabs her throat, desperately trying to spit out the medicine she swallowed. But the moment the medicine enters her stomach, it has already seeped into her internal organs, eroding her blood vessels. "Aw. June Mayan, you slut, you dare to harm me like this. I'll kill you." Gong Qinshuo screams, hysterically throwing herself at Mayan. But she's kicked away by Changyu, who's guarding Mayan. Changyu's expression is very cold. He steps forward, coldly saying, "Miss, the effect of the medicine is too slow. If you want immediate results, it would be better to let this subordinate cripple her hands and feet now." As he spoke, he unsheathed his sword. He walked towards Gong Qinshuo step by step. At this moment, Gong Qinshuo finally felt the despair and fear of extinction. Her hair was loose, a few strands stuck to her face with tears and snot. Her beautiful face was contorted due to extreme fear, making her look extremely ugly. She shook her head as she retreated backward. But Chang Yu's sword was getting closer and closer to her. Just as Chang Yu's sword is about to chop off her hands, Mu Yen suddenly shouts from behind, "Chang Yu, retreat." Almost at the same time, a terrifying, majestic power came crashing down from the void. Chang Yu's eyes darkened. But before he could make a move, his collar was already grabbed by someone and thrown behind him. A slender and frail figure stood in front of him. A dazzling light burst forth from the young girl's body, slowly forming 7 swords of different colors, surrounding the young girl. The rainbow-colored light shrouded the girl's delicate figure, making her seem even more fragile, making people want to protect her even more. But it was such a frail young girl who had shouldered countless heavy burdens. Chapter 623. Chang Yu's vision is slightly blurred. He wishes he could embrace this slender figure, confine her in his arms, and protect her at all costs. But he can't. Brother Jianfeng. Brother Jianfeng. You've finally come to save me. Feeling the familiar breath, Gong Qinshuo screams in excitement. Almost at the same time, a figure rushes down from the void like lightning, heading towards Gong Chinchue. The pungent smoke, accompanied by a powerful pressure, shrouds everyone around. The lower cultivations of the Nether Flame army twitch and fall to the ground. Even Yan Haotian and the others have pale faces, their lips purple. It's obvious that they've been poisoned. Mu Yen sneers. The sound of the zither suddenly rings. The fog in the air seems to be swept away by a gust of wind, and is instantly blown away without a trace. Not far away, Jian Feng's figure also appears. Seeing that his unique poison is easily dispelled, Jian Feng's expression changes slightly. But he doesn't have time to think about it. He directly picks up Gong Chinchue and leaves. Mu Yen sneers, "You hurt my people, and you want to leave so easily." As soon as her voice falls, the 7 swords around her have already shot out. With a puff, Jian Feng, who has just leaped into the air with Gong Chinchue, groans and suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. But just as his figure is about to fall, thick smoke suddenly rises all around him. When the smoke dissipates, Jian Feng and Gong Chinchue's figures have long disappeared. No need to chase. Mu Yen stops Yan Haotian and the others from chasing, and says lightly, "You can't deal with Jian Feng. Even if it's a seriously injured Jian Feng." Just from the confrontation just now, she has already seen that Jian Feng's cultivation is far beyond the peak of the pre-celestial realm. He shouldn't just be a person from the Yinwu continent. "Yes, miss." Yan Haotian and the others bow and say, "Yes," their faces revealing a guilty expression. They are still too weak after all. The miss's internal force is exhausted. Not only can they not help, but they also have to rely on the miss to protect them. Mu Yen knows what they're thinking, and opens her mouth to speak. But suddenly, a huge sense of dizziness surges up. Her eyes go black, and her body softly falls down, losing all consciousness in a split second. Nyangqin. "Miss." Yen. Han Yi reaches out to support Mayan. However, there was someone who was even faster than him. A moment ago, Chang Yu was clearly standing several meters away. But in that instant, he actually teleports over like lightning and catches Mayan's limp body. Han Yi looks over, bewildered and uncertain. He only feels that Chang Yu's quick movements just now are somewhat abnormal. Nyangqin. Xiao Bao rushes to Mu Yan's side, sobbing. Looking at her mother's pale, bloodless face, tears instantly fill her blue eyes. He really wants to take his mother from Chang Yu's hands. Xiao Bao really doesn't like seeing other men hug his mother so intimately. Even if this person was Chang Yu, who had always followed and protected him. But he's too young, too tender. His tiny hands simply can't carry his mother. He can't protect his mother either. Xiao Bao tightly squeezed his mother's ice-cold hand, his heart filled with helplessness and unwillingness. Why wasn't that lecher here? If he was here, he would definitely protect his mother. Chapter 624. There's no expression on Chang Yu's face, but he doesn't loosen his grip. "No need, I can do it. I can protect her. I can give her happiness and safety." Han Ye's face suddenly turns completely gloomy. The surrounding air also stagnates in a split second. Ru Yan and the others look at the way Chang Yu carries Mu Yan, and there's an indescribable sense of incongruity. The way Chang Yu is holding the miss, it's a bit too intimate, too careful and protective. That doesn't look like he's protecting a master. Instead, it looks like he's guarding his beloved. Ru Yan coughs softly. "Chang Yu, let me and Hai Tang take turns being carried by the Mississippi," saying that, she reaches out to take Mu Yan from Chang Yu's hands. However, Chang Yu takes a step back. He looks down at the girl's sleeping face in his arms, and on his indifferent and ordinary face, there's a gentle expression. No need, I'll protect the Mississippi. You'd better call the doctor over. Yes, doctor. Dr. Song, quickly come and see the miss has fainted. Ru Yen and the others seem to wake up from a dream. They no longer care about what's wrong with this atmosphere, and promptly have someone call Dr. Song. But Han Yi suddenly steps forward, unsheathing his long sword, and coldly says, I'll say it again, let go of our madam, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite. Not only does Chang Yu's hand not loosen, it slowly tightens, and he takes a step back. He opens his mouth, wanting to say something. Suddenly, a powerful pressure, as if the sky is falling and the earth is splitting, shrouds him from all directions. Bang! 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 Countless stone pillars in the surroundings shatter, dust flying everywhere. Chang Yu only feels a dull pain in his chest, as if it's about to explode. His whole body seems to be torn to pieces by that powerful force. Before he could react, his arms are already empty. He suddenly looks up. He sees a tall figure standing proudly in the dust. Even if he can't see his face, that disdainful imposing manner is enough to make people want to surrender. And the miss that he's deeply worried about is in that person's arms, tightly imprisoned and possessed. In an instant, Chang Yu feels that it's not only his arms that are empty, but also his heart that's in so much pain that it's almost impossible to breathe. Who are you? Ru Yan and the others still hadn't figured out the situation. Thinking that Jian Feng had returned, she couldn't help but anxiously shout, You dare to hurt our miss, we will definitely tear you into pieces. Several thousand people from the Ink Camp, Heavenly Secret Camp, and Longevity Camp unsheathed their swords. They're about to form a sword formation and recklessly rush in to save the people. But just as the three commanders were about to give the order, Xiaobao's clear and cold voice came steadily, You're not allowed to attack. Mother is fine. His blue eyes flickered as he stared at the figure that slowly appeared after the dust settled. Just a moment ago, he was still wondering why this person wasn't here. Why didn't you come back to protect Niangqin? Then, at this moment, he appeared. When Xiaobao saw his mother in his arms, he felt that if there really was someone who wanted to fight with him over his mother, if there really was someone who wanted to be so intimate with his mother, he would rather it be him. It could only be him. Han Ye's eyes brighten, his voice trembling. He slowly kneels down, Jun Shang, you've finally returned. When the dust has completely settled, the man's devastatingly beautiful and matchlessly handsome countenance is revealed. His indifferent blue eyes sweep over everyone present. He doesn't need to say a single word, just one action, but it makes everyone keep quiet out of fear, wishing that they could crawl at his feet. Chapter 625. Ru Yan and the others finally come back to their senses, and they rub their eyes, shouting excitedly, Son-in-law, you're finally back. As soon as the words come out, she realizes that she was too excited, and actually called out the name she uses in private. She promptly says in fear and trepidation, Jun Shang, this subordinate made a mistake, please don't. Before she can finish speaking, Di Mingju already interrupts, don't change it, very good. Ru Yan receives Di Mingju's stern and proud, but also praising gaze, and for a moment, she is overwhelmed by favor. After a long while, she reacts. Di Mingju's very good refers to the title of son-in-law. She immediately smiles from ear to ear. But the rest of the Dark Flame army look at each other in dismay, secretly engraving the title of son-in-law in their hearts. As for whether Miss will be angry or not, of course she won't. Didn't you see that Miss even changed Ghost Wind Valley to Dark Flame Valley? The new son-in-law is called Di Mingju, and Miss is called Jun Mayan, each taking a word to form a valley. Isn't this a clear indication of Miss's feelings for son-in-law? Mayan would never have thought that she would just sleep for a while, and when she wakes up, she would already be directly sent out by her subordinates. Di Mingju holds Mayan, slowly walking in front of Changyu. In a split second, the originally relaxed atmosphere because of Ru Yan's son-in-law once again congeals into ice. Guanhu and everyone from the ink camp are nervous, stiff all over. They fear that Di Mingju will make a move, and Changyu's head will be separated from his body. Mayan is Ben Jun's wife. Di Mingju coldly says in a calm voice, "If anyone dares to covet Mayan, Ben Jun will make them regret coming to this world. You should be glad that you are Mayan's subordinate, otherwise no matter who you are, you would already be living a life worse than death." Changyu clenches his teeth, his whole body is trembling, and his face is even more pale. Guanhu desperately pulls on his sleeves, not letting him speak. But Changyu raises his head a little, looking at Di Mingju. "Miss has never admitted that she is your wife," just as Changyu finishes speaking. The girl in Di Mingju's arms cries out, slowly opening her eyes. But her eyes are still blurred, as if she can't tell what day it is. Her absent-minded gaze falls on Di Mingju's face, and she softly murmurs, "Di Mingju." Di Mingju's entire body's murderous aura abruptly withdraws completely. His cold eyes flashed with a gentleness that even he himself did not notice. "It's me. You're finally back." "Yes, I'm back." Mu Yan absent-mindedly smiles for a bit. She gently rubs against his chest, and then murmurs, "Di Mingju, I was so afraid that you wouldn't come back." "It's great that you're back." Her voice becomes softer little by little, until it dissipates in Di Mingju's arms. Di Mingju's hands couldn't help but abruptly tighten, and he tightens his hold on the girl, shackling her in his arms. Changyu looked at this scene in a daze, only to feel as if there was a bunch of huge thorns in his chest, tearing at his heart. At this moment, he finally understood. His words just now were ridiculously wrong. Not only did Di Mingxin have a crush on Miss Mu, but Miss Mu also had this man in her heart, and only this man. And what does he count as? Changyu reveals a bitter smile, slowly taking a step back. He kneels down on the ground, and says in a hoarse voice, "This subordinate swears to follow Miss and Little Master to death, and will never have the slightest bit of wishful thinking." Chapter 626. Turning around, he picks up Xiao Bao with one hand, puts him on his shoulder, and turns to leave. Watching the backs of the three people as they leave, everyone in the Nether Flame army is envious. This is such a beautiful scene. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Jun Shang is so handsome and powerful, and the Miss is so incomparably beautiful. Even the little Gongzi is adorable like snow jade that everyone loves. At this moment, many people are convinced that Xiao Bao is Di Mingju's son. Otherwise, they simply can't imagine what kind of outstanding man is worthy of their Miss, worthy to be the father of their little master. Changyu slowly stands up from the ground, watching this scene. The pain and loneliness in his eyes are deeply hidden. Suddenly, a hand pats his shoulder. Changyu hears Guanhu's rough voice in his ear, "Boss, don't blame this brother for not reminding you. There are some thoughts that you shouldn't have, you should put them away as soon as possible. Miss, you can't have such thoughts." Although he and Changyu are now leaders, Guanhu has always regarded Changyu as the boss. When the ink camp was just established, it was also Changyu who was the first to obey Mu Yan, and pointed out the bright path for them. Because they were willing to follow the Miss, to be loyal to the little master, they have today. Therefore, many people in the ink camp respect Changyu as a deputy commander second only to Yan Haotian. But among everyone, only the seemingly careless Guanhu can see through Changyu's thoughts. He has always been worried about Changyu's misplaced infatuation. Changyu turns to look at him, the corners of his mouth pull up, revealing a wry smile. In the end, he doesn't say anything and turns to leave. Guanhu frowns slightly, watching the man's lonely back as he leaves. He lets out a long sigh. Mu Yan feels that she's having a long dream. In the dream, the sound of the Tian Mo Chin echoes in her ears. There are also earth-shaking battle cries, screams, and roars. The Shin musicians are possessed by demons, everyone has the right to punish them. Kill all of them. The Shin musicians, heal the sick and save people, have never harmed a wronged life, and have never done anything that goes against reason and nature. But you, just for the sake of power and selfishness, want to slaughter my Shin musicians. In the end, who is the demon? Bailey Yin Liu, as long as you hand over the Shin musician inheritance, my Tiani men might even give you an intact corpse, I curse you. The Polar Domain, the Heaven Physician sect, the Yin-Yang sect. I curse everyone in the Shushan continent to die a horrible death. One day, my Shin musician successor will return to the Shushan continent. When that time comes, she will definitely wash this continent with blood, so that you will never be able to reincarnate. One day, the revenge of my Shin musician sect will come, just you wait, just you wait. Just you wait. Mu Yan suddenly opens her eyes, her heart beating violently. In her dream, the Shin musician sect and Bailey Yinlo's mournful cries before their deaths, filled with hatred and hatred as deep as a sea of blood, seemed to fill her heart, making it almost impossible for her to breathe. What had happened 1,000 years ago? Why did the Shin musicians become the target of the entire Shushan continent's pursuit? Furthermore, she seemed to have heard. Polar Domain. Mu Yan takes a deep breath, suppressing the churning emotions in her heart. Chapter 627. Once her line of sight is fixed, Mayan's breathing, which had just recovered, suddenly stagnates once again. A handsome face comes into view without any hindrance, making her heartbeat completely disorderly. Di Mingju, who usually opens his eyes, has a pair of deep, dark, ice-blue eyes. From top to bottom, there's a lofty and aloof coldness. Just like an emperor who rules over the world, making people unconsciously want to kneel down at his feet. But the man who's sleeping right now, the light falls on his fair face, reflecting the sharp angles of his face. Under the sword-like eyebrows, there are thick, long, and slightly curled eyelashes. The long eyelashes gently droop, covering those ice-cold eyes, making his entire temperament soften. Under the handsome bridge of his nose, there's a pair of thin lips. The line of his lips is taut, carrying a trace of solemnity. But sleeping peacefully like this, it inexplicably gives people a kind of childlike cuteness. Mayan's vision is somewhat blurred. When she was unconscious, she vaguely saw Di Mingju's face. At that time, she thought that it was her own dream. But she didn't expect that it would actually be true. This man, he really came back. Her hand uncontrollably reaches out, gently caressing the man's eyebrows, as if to confirm that he really exists. Her fingertips lightly touch those ink-black eyebrows, the tightly closed eyes, and the thin, lightly pursed lips. Her fingers touch the man's lips in the air, and quietly stop. She inexplicably wants to touch it, to see if it's the warm touch in her memory. Suddenly, Mayan seems to realize what she's doing, and her face reddens. Just as she's about to take her hand back, her wrist is suddenly covered with a warm touch. Her wrist tightens, and her whole body is pulled over, falling into the man's embrace. A familiar coolness hits her in the face, accompanied by the man's unique scent, making Mayan's flushed cheeks even redder. Let go. When she opens her mouth, she realizes how flustered her voice is. Di Mingju, what are you doing? The man bends down slightly, his hot breath at her ear. Shouldn't Ben Jun be asking you this? Yen, what do you want to do while I'm sleeping? Mayan didn't expect that she would be caught red-handed. She felt extremely guilty and could only put on a strong front. Don't talk nonsense, I didn't. Di Mingju looks at her blushing little face. The anger he felt when he saw Changyu hugging her disappeared without a trace at this moment. He firmly clasps Mayan's slender wrist and presses it against his chest. Yen Yen, why do you have to be so sneaky? Where else do you want to touch? Your husband will let you touch as you please. Shut up. Mu Yen finally flew into a rage out of humiliation and jumped up. Who said I wanted to touch you? I just wanted to slap you awake. However, before Mu Yen could even jump off the bed, he was already pulled back by a strong force. For a moment, the world spins, and Mayan's hands are pressed on top of her head. The man's tall figure enveloped her completely. Di Mingju's peerlessly handsome face is within reach, his serene blue eyes are filled with her reflection. Yen Yen, long time no see. Did you miss me even for a moment? As he spoke, the man's warm breath blew on his face, causing Mu Yan's skin to feel numb and itchy, as if there was a layer of goosebumps. Chapter 628. The man's voice is so dark and husky, like a bewitching whisper. But like a brand, it's engraved into the depths of her soul, leaving her nowhere to escape. So, when Di Mingju slowly leans over, getting closer and closer to her lips, Mayan completely forgets to resist. She even sinks into that kind of blazing chaos of passion. She unconsciously sticks out her tongue and licks her somewhat dry lips. Such a small action is like a fuse, suddenly igniting Di Mingju's painstakingly suppressed passion. His eyes are frighteningly hot, like a beast that has been starving for a long time, itching to devour its prey into its belly. His sexy Adam's apple bobs up and down. Di Mingju leans over, about to kiss those cherry blossom soft lips. However, at this moment, slap, a small palm covers Di Mingju's face. Then, a crisp and angry little voice reaches their ears, Lecher, you're not allowed to bully Nyangqin. The two turn their heads at the same time, and what they see is a small, expressionless Xiao Bao sitting on the bed, glaring angrily at Di Mingju. Jun Shang's face immediately darkens. Anyone's mood would explode if they're interrupted in the middle of a good occasion. The low pressure around him is as thick as an approaching storm. Unfortunately, Xiao Bao simply ignores him. Instead, he pushes him away with a small hand, and pounces into Mayan's arms. Nyangqin. Xiao Bao's voice is filled with grievance. Nyangqin is Xiao Bao. Nyangqin can't ignore Xiao Bao. You can't not see Xiao Bao. In fact, when Mayan woke up, Xiao Bao and Di Mingju were sleeping on her left and right. It's just that when she opened her eyes, she saw Di Mingju. For a moment, she didn't notice Xiao Bao's existence. At this time, she hears her baby complaining in a voice filled with grievance, acting like a spoiled child. What Di Mingju, what charming and gentle feelings, she immediately throws them all to the back of her mind. She holds Xiao Bao in her arms, and kisses him on his tender cheeks. Good baby, Nyangqin loves Xiao Bao the most. Hearing Nephrite's kind words, Xiao Bao's complexion softens. Blushing, he also softly kisses Mayan's face. Soon after, he hugs Mayan's neck and rubs it while turning his head to look at Di Mingju, revealing a provocative and flaunting expression. Di Mingju faintly looks at him, then hooks up the corners of his lips, revealing a meaningful smile. Jun Machin, long time no see, how's your training progress? After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Bao and Mu Yan to object, he directly lifted him by the collar and carried him out of the room. Let this lord see if you have retreated. Although Xiao Bao is reluctant to part with his mother's embrace, he thinks that he can become stronger under Di Mingju's training, so he obediently doesn't resist. After a day of training, even with Xiao Bao's extraordinary talent, he was so tired that he almost collapsed. When night fell, He slept like a piglet, completely unconscious. In order for him to better heal his body, Mu Yen directly placed him next to the spiritual vein in the space. As for Di Mingju, without Xiao Bao's interference, he naturally has his wish fulfilled, holding Mayan to sleep. Shadow Demon. Han Yi sees the cold youngster standing in the cold dew, and rushes over like a gust of wind. You're back too. Chapter 629. If he had a tail behind him, he's afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop himself from wagging at this time. Mei sees his silly appearance, and can't help but burst out laughing. But very quickly, her smile converges. Jun Shang is injured, I naturally have to follow and protect him. Originally, Star Wolf, and the others also wanted to follow, but Jun Shang stopped them. Han Ye's complexion changes. Jun Shang is really injured. How is the injury? How did you get injured? Mei tells him about Di Mingju breaking into Tian Men alone, and how he killed Lu Se. Han Yi is simply dumbstruck as he listens. After a long while, he mutters, truly worthy of being our Jun Shang. With only 10% of his power, he actually turned Tian Men upside down. Hee, that old witch Leng Yuexia, she must be furious right now. As he speaks, they see a tall figure treading on the moonlight. Han Yi and Mei promptly kneel down, greetings to Jun Shang. Jun Shang, you still haven't recovered from your injury. Why did you come to the Yinwu continent? Han Yi anxiously says, the injury you received last time when you killed the Snowfield mythological beast still hasn't completely healed. This time, you've been injured again. If you don't treat it properly, I'm afraid that it will cause irreversible damage to you. It would be better for you to return to the polar domain to recuperate. Mei and I will properly guard Miss Jun's place, there won't be any trouble. Han Yi hasn't finished speaking when he suddenly feels his whole body go cold, as if he's in a 10,000-year-old icehouse. He shakily raises his head, meeting God's cold eyes. In a split second, his body goes limp, and he almost falls to the ground. Almost in an instant, his mind recalls the scene of Miss Jun being held in Chang Yu's arms. The key point is that Jun Shang is also watching this scene. Han Yi only feels his vision darken, wishing he could faint at once. Jun Shang, this subordinate was wrong. He says with a sullen face, this subordinate is willing to go to the purgatory pool for three months. Di Mingju expressionlessly says, adding the accumulated time from before, how much time is that? Come out after you've finished. Don't awe. Han Yi screams, pitifully looking at Di Mingju. He didn't know how many years he had spent in the purgatory pool. If he came out after his time was up, wouldn't he not be able to see Mei for several years? Moreover, he would have to suffer in the purgatory pool every day. Wowo, Jun Shang, how could you be so cruel? Di Mingju says unhurriedly, you want to add another month. Han Yi doesn't dare to say a word, and can only ask Mei for help. However, Mei replied with a smile, don't worry, I will protect Miss Jun well. In a split second, Han Ye's face becomes devoid of love. Are there still any companions to love? Hello, Master. Hello, little senior brother. Master, are you looking for me? Seeing Liu Beiyu standing before her, Mayan can't come back to her senses for a long time. Ever since the great change in Jin Wangfu, Liu Beiyu seems to have grown up overnight. During this time, he's been training with the Ink Camp. Starting from the most common soldier in the Ink Camp, he didn't complain to Mayan or Xiao Bao, nor did he cower in the slightest. After not seeing him for a few months, the fair-skinned youth seemed to have lost all of his immaturity. His whole body has become a circle darker, and he's also a circle more robust. His stature has also become slimmer. He looks like a truly mature and responsible man, not the unreliable little prince who only knows how to flirt. Chapter 630. A lot of things have happened during this time. I haven't had time to treat your big brother's illness. Now I'm free. Master, you don't have to do it. Liu Beiyu smiles and says, Big brother's illness, I've already told Dr. Song and Sister Haitang of the Immortal Camp about it. With Master's diagnosis and prescription, Dr. Song and the others have already prepared the medicine to treat my big brother. I was just about to ask you to let Sister Haitang accompany me to Qi Yen country to treat my big brother's illness. Mayan stares blankly, somewhat unable to come back to her senses. The Everlasting Camp was established after the Ink Camp and the Tianji Camp. Apart from the Grand Void Camp commanded by Bai Chen, the Everlasting Camp can be said to be the weakest. Even in the future, the speed of development will not be as fast as the Grand Void Camp. Because the Grand Void Camp and the Ink Camp are in charge of fighting, and the Tianji Camp is in charge of intelligence. The Everlasting Camp is in charge of support and logistics. What it needs the most are doctors, pharmacists, alchemists, and draft planting masters, these special professions. But the training of these talents is often the most difficult. Nowadays, in the Everlasting Camp, apart from Feng Haitang and Chengqing Feng who have received her personal guidance, the others can't even be considered as apprentices in this regard. As for Old Tao, he is mainly responsible for the external trading of various medicines of the Everlasting Camp. What makes Mayan rejoice is that the Battle of Litian City is over, even though Gong Qinxue ran away. But all the soldiers under her command have surrendered. Even many people of Litian City and Lotus Town have followed Mayan back to Hellfire Valley, settling down in the valley. And Dr. Song and the others, in order to thank Mayan for saving their lives, have all given up the industry that they have been operating for decades. They choose to rely on Mayan. In this way, whether it's the newly established Grand Void Camp or the Everlasting Camp that is short of manpower, they have all been greatly replenished. Of course, the more people there are in Hellfire Valley, the more rations they need. Not to mention that she's throwing money without regard for her life, building the Hellfire Army towards the direction of the #1 army in the Yanwu continent. The money that Mayan has plundered from the Ghost City and Jingqing country is already stretched thin. She is pondering whether to refine elixirs and let the Ghost City sell them first, or to treat Liu Beiyu's big brother. Unexpectedly, Liu Beiyu actually proposed to let Feng Haitang help with the treatment. Liu Beiyu's eyes are tightly fixed on Mayan, his eyes brimming with admiration and gratitude. Master, you've just suffered such a serious injury some time ago, and you've even lost consciousness due to exhaustion. The disciples and the Hellfire Army don't want you to work anymore. June finally came back with great difficulty. Master, Master, and Master. Master. I believe Grand Master doesn't want you to suffer anymore. Mayan's face reddens and she secretly spits. Shut up, who are you calling Master Gong? Alright, since you've already decided, then pick a day to depart. However, make sure to bring more medicine and manpower. Be careful. Lu of to say, Lu of Lu of two. Lu T to. Have you decided to go to Qi Yen country in person? You two of you to go to T. To be two of a two of long two of him. Two of to. Two. Of two. Chapter 631. Miss, I'm also a human, a woman who yearns for the man she loves to protect her. My heart also hurts, and I also get tired. Perhaps, he doesn't want to see me at all. He doesn't want to be with me all the time. If I stay here, I'll just be torturing each other. I might as well leave for a while. Perhaps both of us can make the best choice. Mu Yen sighs softly. Since you've already decided, I will naturally support you. However, even if he went out, he couldn't leave for too long. Come back early. The gates of the Netherflame Valley are always open for you. Feng Haitang's eyes reddened. She kneels on one knee and presses one hand on her left chest, bowing deeply to Mu Yan. Miss, for Haitang, even if there is no Hao Tian here, this is already my home. You, little master, and the people of the Nether Flame Army are all Haitang's family. Apart from here, where else can Haitang go? I will definitely come back. Yan Haotian only discovered that Feng Haitang's figure had disappeared from the entire Netherflame Valley a few days later. He asked the people of the Longevity Camp, but they did not know where Feng Haitang had gone. She only knew that she went out with Dr. Song and did something for Mississippi. But if it was just for business, why was there no news from him for 7 days? Yan Haotian was burning with anxiety. Terrible thoughts kept circling around in his mind, causing his mind to go blank. Finally, he couldn't help but walk into Mu Yan's bedroom. When he entered, Ru Yan happened to be there too. Before Yan Haotian could speak, he heard Ru Yan say anxiously, Miss, the people of the Tianji Battalion have been monitoring the Qi Yan country, but a few days ago, they suddenly lost contact with Haitang and Dr. Song. Even the Qi Yan Imperial Palace is completely closed. We don't know what happened inside. When Yan Haotian heard this, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He opened his mouth and let out a hoarse roar. Mu Yan looks at him, only to see that the usually calm and indifferent man's face is now filled with anxiety. His eyes were red with anxiety, like a wild beast that wanted to fight to the death. Mayan slightly knits her brows. Haitang and Dr. Song were under my orders to treat Big Brother Liu Beiyu. According to my judgment, Big Brother Liu Beiyu's illness is due to being poisoned. I'm afraid something has happened in the Crimson Flame Imperial Palace. Therefore, Haitang also brought some people over. Logically speaking, it should be foolproof, but I didn't expect to suddenly lose contact with them. Even the Heavenly Secret Battalion couldn't find anything. Haitang might really have met with some mishap. Ah! Yan Haotian opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he could only make a hoarse and unpleasant sound. He reached out his hand to draw, but found that his hand was trembling. For a moment, he was unable to use sign language to express his meaning smoothly. Mayan coughs lightly, as if she didn't see his abnormality. She continues, We naturally can't ignore the life and death of Haitang and Dr. Song, so we must immediately dispatch troops to Qi Yan country. But this trip is very dangerous, I don't know who. Before she could finish her sentence, Yan Haotian suddenly let out an indistinct roar. Ugh. Oh. I. Go. His tongue had been cut off, so he could not speak smoothly. But at this time, he was panicking and worried to the extreme. He actually forced himself to say, I'll go. Even Ru Yan was slightly moved, but then she gently shook her head. Chapter 632. Yan Haotian nodded heavily, and the eagerness in his eyes seemed to be overflowing. I can allow you to bring a team of people from the Yin camp there, but you have to guarantee that you'll bring Feng Haitang back in good condition. Moreover, you have to make sure that she comes back willingly. At this time, Yan Haotian's heart is only filled with Feng Haitang's safety. He simply can't understand the meaning behind Mayan's words. Once again, he nodded heavily and made a few random gestures. After Mu Yan nodded in agreement, he instantly rushed out like a gust of wind. When only Mu Yan and Ru Yan were left in the hall, Ru Yan clicked her tongue and sighed. Men, sometimes they are really stupid. They're clearly in love with each other, but I don't know what Yan Haotian's blockhead is thinking. TSK, I can't understand why a beauty like little sister Haitang would fall for that blockhead, Yan Haotian. Mu Yan smiles faintly. Yan Haotian is just too self-abased, afraid that he is not worthy of Haitang, afraid that Haitang will miss out on a better one. Ru Yan disapprovingly shook her head, but that blockhead never thought about what little sister Haitang really wants. If you continue to hesitate and retreat, when the real disaster comes and you want to turn around and grab that person's hand, you will find that it is already too late. At that time, you will be truly regretful and heartbroken. Mu Yan was stunned for a long, long time. She did not come back to her senses. She did not even notice when Ru Yan had left. When Mu Yan comes back to her senses, she finds herself standing in front of Di Mingju's door. She was stunned for a moment, not understanding why she was here. It was as if the uneasiness in her heart had driven her to investigate. During this time, Di Mingju was always by her side, and there seemed to be no change. But every day, there would always be a long period of time when not even his shadow could be seen. Every time he asked Ying Mei would always say that Jun Shang's clone had returned to the Shushan continent and had some matters to deal with. Ying Mei even openly opens the door, letting her see Di Mingju's sleeping body. Di Mingju's identity isn't simple, it's very normal for him to have matters to deal with. Mayan doesn't know why, but she always feels uneasy, especially after hearing Ru Yan's words. Is it because of this fear and uneasiness that she unconsciously walked to the door of Di Mingju's room? She was about to push the door open to see if Di Mingju had returned to the Shushan continent. However, Ying Mei's somewhat anxious voice suddenly came from the room. Jun Shang, your injuries can't be dragged on any longer. Why don't we let Miss Jun take a look? Although she doesn't have any divine power, her medical skills are superb. She might be able to heal your injuries. Or, why don't you directly return to the polar domain and let your main body recuperate in a place rich in divine power? Immediately, Di Mingju's cold voice interrupts Ying Mei's words. There's no need to say any more. Ben Jun will not leave Mu Yan, and I don't want her to worry. Mayan finally couldn't bear it any longer and fiercely pushes the door open. She glared fiercely at the man in front of her, who was half naked and had bandages wrapped around his waist and abdomen. Her eyes were a little red. The voice that comes out of her mouth carries a hoarse tremble that even she herself doesn't notice. Di Mingju, is this your way of not letting me worry? You idiot! Chapter 633. Startled, Di Mingju raises his head, seemingly very surprised by her appearance. After a long while, his expression softens, and he says in a low voice, Yen Yen, why did you come here? Mayan fiercely glares at him, and quickly walks to his side. She pushes aside the hand he's trying to cover, and goes to look at the injury on his abdomen. Her voice is filled with resentment. If I hadn't discovered it by accident, how long were you going to hide it from me? Di Mingju's voice unconsciously softens. It's just a small injury, it's not a big deal. But how can Mayan believe him? She rips off his clothes at once, and carefully examines the injury on his abdomen. Ying Mei's brows are smiling, but she promptly hangs her head down to restrain herself. She quietly withdraws and closes the door. The two people in the room act as if there's no one else around, simply not noticing her departure. After closing the door, Ying Mei reveals a somewhat sorrowful expression. She never knew that her aloof, callous, and heartless Jun Shang actually has such a black-bellied side. Jun Shang's injury is indeed very serious, but after this period of rest, it's more or less healed. Especially today, the bruises in his body have already been completely cleaned up. Although his body is still a little weak, it's not a serious hindrance. And the wound on his abdomen was cut by himself when he was cleaning up the bruises and poisonous gas in his body. With Jun Shang's cultivation, wanting to heal is just a matter of a blink. However, a few days ago, when he was seriously injured, Jun Shang refused to show it in the slightest. Now that the injury is clearly healed, but when he sensed Miss Jun approaching, he deliberately made Miss Jun misunderstand that he was seriously injured. She thinks of Miss Jun's unconcealable anxiety and worry. Ying Mei couldn't help but sigh, then she shows a shallow smile. It seems that it's only a matter of time before Miss June becomes the mistress of the polar domain. Because June Shang would never allow a woman that he fancies to escape the web of love that he weaves. Inside the room, Mayan pulls off Di Mingju's clothes, revealing his well-defined and well-built chest. Smooth lines spread down, eventually disappearing under the wrapped gauze. But Mayan doesn't notice this spring scenery at all. Right now, her eyes are only filled with the faintly discernible color of blood under the gauze. Her small hand presses on the gauze, wanting to untie it, but it's caught by Di Mingju. The man's hoarse voice rings in her ear. Yen Yen, if you continue to be so enthusiastic, Ben June won't be able to hold back. As soon as Mayan raises her head, she comes face to face with the man's blazing eyes. That gaze seemed to want to swallow her whole. Her heart is beating fiercely in her chest, and Mayan only feels that her whole body is a little bit hot, as if it's going to burn. She could not help but lick her lips. The flame in Di Mingju's eyes suddenly flares up, he can no longer suppress it. However, before he could move, his clothes were suddenly grabbed by a small hand. His body was forced to lean forward. The girl's beautiful face was right in front of him, and her fragrance filled the tip of his nose. Soon after, before Di Mingju could react, soft lips press against his lightly pursed thin lips. The sweet fragrance bloomed like fireworks. Di Mingju's entire body suddenly stiffens, his eyes widening. For a moment, he can't react to what just happened. Mu Yan kissed him. This is the first time his Yen Yen has taken the initiative to kiss him. Was he dreaming? Or did it really happen? Chapter 634. Then, he saw the girl opposite him blushing and saying, "Don't mess around. Be good and don't move. Let me see your injuries." Then, our Lord Monarch, who dominated the three realms, looked down on the world, whose name struck fear into the hearts of all who dared not disobey him, obediently sat upright, allowing the slender, soft, and fair hand to slowly remove the bandage around his waist, revealing the bloody wound. The moment he saw the gaping wound, Mu Yan felt his heart suddenly twitch, as if something was gripping it tightly. It was a knife wound that almost cut open his chest and abdomen. As long as it went a little deeper, it might be able to directly cut open his dantian. Just by looking at it, she felt a bone-piercing pain. However, the man in front of her said that it was just a small injury and was unwilling to let her know and treat it. Di Mingju looks at her absent-minded and pained expression, his heart is both sweet and distressed. He pulls her into his arms and nibbles on her lips. "June Mayan, you still dare to say that you don't have me in your heart? Is it so hard to admit that you like me too?" This man. At a time like this, he was still fussing over this. Mayan fiercely glares at him, but at this time, the corners of her eyes are slightly red. Not only is there no fierceness, but there's also a bit of delicacy and charm, making Di Mingju's eyes become even more serene. He pressed the back of the girl's neck with one hand and pressed her against him. His scorching lips pressed against hers. "You're wound." Ugh. Mayan wants to struggle, but all of a sudden, all of her voice is swallowed up. Her hands, which were trying to push him away, were also locked in the man's large palm, and she was unable to struggle. The scorching kiss engulfed every inch of her breath and senses. It was overbearing and predatory, as if it wanted to swallow her up completely. Mu Yan's mind gradually became a blur. All she could feel was the man's boiling temperature, and the tip of her nose was filled with the man's familiar breath that made people's blood boil. She vaguely knew that she had already sunk into a man's love and passion, and could no longer extricate herself. Just then, his fingertips touched a sticky liquid. Mu Yan abruptly sobers up from her confused state of mind, and pushes Di Mingju away. When she looked down, she saw the bloody wound on the man's abdomen and the bed sheet that was stained red. A pair of peach blossom eyes are thoroughly red, like a raging fire is burning. Demingju, you obediently lie down for me. If you dare to move again, I'll castrate you. Jun Shangdaran, who still hasn't had enough, licks his sweet and fragrant lips, feeling somewhat depressed and regretful. Was he lifting a rock only to smash his own feet? How did you get injured? Mu Yan carefully takes out the elixir refined from the cloud birth and sea binding, crushes it into powder, and sprinkles it on the wound. Demingju's physique is special. Ordinary drafts don't contain spiritual energy, so they have no effect on him. Only the pills refined from the cloud birth and sea formation skill would have some effect. When the powder fell on the wound, it was visible to the naked eye, making a sizzling sound. Mu Yan feels pain just by looking at it, but Demingju doesn't seem to feel anything. Other than his slightly pale face, there was no change in his expression. He just stared at her unblinkingly. When he heard Mu Yan's question, he raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a slight smile that was almost imperceptible. Someone hurt my fiancée, how could I let her off so easily? Chapter 635. However, was it really that simple? She didn't think so. The words that Lu Se said before her death, as well as the Tianyi men that she mentioned, seemed to have once had a deep relationship with the Shin musicians. Or rather, it should be called a deep hatred. Demingju didn't hesitate to get seriously injured to go back to the Shushan continent to kill Lu Se. Is it really just because of a personal grudge? Or does he already know my identity as a Shin musician? In Mu Yan's mind, she unexpectedly recalls the voice she heard in her dream. I curse you. Polar domain, Tianyi men. I curse all of you in the Shushan continent to die a horrible death. One day, my Shin musician successor will return to the Shushan continent. When that time comes, she will wash this continent with blood, making it so that you will never be able to reincarnate. Polar domain, is it the polar domain that Han Yi and the others spoke of? 1,000 years ago, it wasn't only Tianyi men who had enmity with the Shin musicians, but also the polar domain where Demingju was? If Demingju really knows her identity as the successor of the Shin musician, what will be the future of the two of them? His heart was filled with extreme uneasiness and fear. Demingju, don't you have anything to ask me? Demingju straightens up and gently caresses her cheek. Ben Jun naturally has questions. For example, Mu Yan holds her breath, waiting for the man to question her, but she hears him hoarsely say, for example, Yen Yen, when will you be willing to marry Ben Jun? This bastard. Mu Yan rolls her eyes and is about to push him away. But she hears the man's dark and soft voice slowly echoing in her ears. Ben Jun doesn't want to investigate, and also doesn't want to ask. Everything related to Yen Yen, I want to wait for you to tell me personally, Yen Yen. Mu Yan's body suddenly trembled. She straightened her body and looked at the man's handsome face. She suddenly had an urge to tell him everything. Demingju, you know Shin. Before she could finish her words, a white shadow suddenly flashes in front of her. A fat rabbit falls from the sky, landing in front of Mayan with a bang. The warm conversation between the two was abruptly interrupted. The fat rabbit blinks its mung-bean eyes, looking at Mu Yan, then looking at Demingju. When it met Demingju's ice-cold eyes, it screeched. He covered his head and fled into the space like a rat. Just at this moment, Old Tao's voice came from outside with a report. Mu Yan's confession naturally can't continue. After settling Demingju down on the bed to rest, she turns around and leaves. Demingju slightly narrows his eyes as he watches Mayan Li close the door and her departing figure. Just now, he seemed to have felt a powerful energy fluctuation. And that energy wave was emitted from Mu Yan's body. But when he wanted to investigate, the energy fluctuation had already disappeared without a trace. Moreover, was the appearance of that fat rabbit really a coincidence? In the space, the fat rabbit shivered and hid in the grass. Recalling the terrifying pressure emitted by that man, he dug the ground with his front claws, wishing he could bury his entire round body in it. However, before he could finish digging the hole, the fur on the back of his neck suddenly tightened, and his 4 short legs abruptly rose into the air. The fat rabbit let out a howl, and then came face to face with an incomparably handsome face. That person had the appearance of a young man. His eyebrows were like a painting, and he was unparalleled. However, his eyes were incomparably gloomy, as if they were precipitating the vicissitudes of 10,000 years. That's the spirit of the Tian Mo Qin, Qi Huang. Chapter 636. This person is also terrible as the man outside. Meeting the fat rabbit's frightened mung-bean eyes, Qi Huang raises an eyebrow, revealing a charming smile. Don't be afraid, you're the little girl's spiritual pet, and the little girl is my new master after all. Ben Zun won't hurt you. At least, not for the time being. The youth's smile is clearly bright and brilliant, his voice soft and pleasant, but the fat rabbit trembles even more. Qi Huang continues, I already said don't be afraid. Just now, I was just using you to deal with emergencies, to obstruct her from continuing. Otherwise, this little lass will speak out everything without any sense of propriety. How can that be? The Shin musicians are destined to take revenge, to slaughter the 3 realms. How can she easily trust anyone? If I were to be deceived by a scumbag like my previous master, what would I do? Jun Mayan, don't worry. This time, Ben Zun will watch over you and protect you. I will never let you repeat the same mistakes. The expression on the youth's face becomes more and more gentle, but the breath emitted from his body makes the fat rabbit unable to bear it any longer. It howls and suddenly jumps out of the youth's arms, hiding in the grass far away. In the distance, the youth watches its fleeing figure and smiles softly. Then, his figure slowly fades and disappears. In the space, the Tian Mo Qin strings inexplicably move a few times, making a strange sound. Under Mayan's careful treatment, coupled with Jun Shangdaran no longer courting death, the wounds on his body quickly begin to heal. When she finds out that Di Mingju's wounds don't need any treatment, they heal themselves in a short period of time. Mayan knows that she's been deceived. This bastard lecher, in order to take advantage of her, he's simply unscrupulous. However, when she saw the wound on the man's body, she completely lost her mind and was easily deceived. She was very calm and wise. Mayan flies into a rage out of humiliation. As a result, in the next few days, Di Mingju doesn't even get on Mayan's bed, he often can't even see her figure. Often, when he goes to look for someone, Mayan's men will use all kinds of reasons to hinder him. Unfortunately, these people call him son-in-law, making him unable to vent his anger. At night, Di Mingju wants to sneak in and hug Mayan to sleep, but finds that Mayan is holding Xiao Bao every night. As soon as he entered, Xiao Bao immediately woke up and looked at him with a pair of clear blue eyes. Only at this moment does Di Mingju know what it means to lift a rock and smash one's own feet. Ingmei witnessed this scene, and she was overjoyed in her heart. Previously, she thought that Miss June wouldn't be able to escape Jun Shang's grasp. But from the looks of it now, it was their Jun Shang who had been completely devoured. There was no room for him to turn the tables. The Grand Void Battalion has basically been reorganized. Bai Chen half knelt in front of Mu Yen, bowed and said, I wonder if we will continue to recruit soldiers and buy horses. As the transfer and dispatch camp of the Ink Camp, the Heavenly Secret Camp and the Longevity Camp, the Grand Void Camp can be said to occupy a very important position. In the Grand Void Battalion, there must be experienced elites who could support the other 3 battalions in battle. They also needed a strategist to command the battle and set up battle formations. More importantly, they had to nurture new reserve talents and send them to the other 3 battalions. That's why Mayan had always said that only Bai Chen could serve as the commander-in-chief of this battalion. Chapter 637. During this time, Mu Yan was very satisfied with Bai Chen's work. The only thing she was dissatisfied with was that ever since she joined the Nether Flame Army, Bai Chen had insisted on calling her Miss. He treated her respectfully with the etiquette of a subordinate, and did not overstep the rules in the slightest, making Mu Yan feel rather helpless. There's no need to recruit more people for now. Mayan says, first train the existing soldiers well. If you need elixirs, you can go directly to the Everlasting Camp to get them. Also, Mayan pauses, how is your body recuperating now? Are you preparing to break through to the innate realm? Bai Chen was taken aback and raised his head. He sees Mu Yan slowly coming down and grabbing his wrist. Her snow-white jade-like fingers pressed on his pulse, bringing with it a warm and smooth touch, causing Bai Chen's body to stiffen slightly for a moment. After a moment, Mayan withdraws her hand and smiles. Bai Chen had stepped into the threshold of the innate stage. Now, it was time to reap the fruits of his labor. With a flick of her wrist, a bottle of pills appeared in her palm. She then handed it to Bai Chen. This is the limit-breaking pill. Take it before you break through to the innate stage. It will definitely help you overcome your inner demons and advance smoothly. Bai Chen's eyes suddenly widened. He didn't take the elixir but said, the limit-breaking elixir is too precious. I only need the filter of barrier breaking. He knew about the limit-breaking pill. Dr. Song and the others from the longevity camp had mentioned it before. That was an elixir that very few people in the Nether Flame Army had seen before. It was said that Mu Yan could only refine a few pills every once in a while, and its effects were definitely not something that ordinary pills could compare to. And the ones sold to the Ghost City have never included this kind of elixir. It was obvious how precious it was. Bai Chen stubbornly refused to take the pill. Mu Yan helplessly grabs his hand and stuffs the porcelain bottle into his palm. For me, you friends and relatives are much more precious than elixirs. Moreover, don't you want your strength to advance by leaps and bounds, and then kill Gong Qinshue with your own hands to take revenge for Lin Sitong? Bai Chen was startled and subconsciously tightened his grip on the porcelain bottle in his hand. His eyes flashed with struggle and hatred. His calm eyes were now filled with turbulent waves. Yes, he still wanted revenge. His Sitong had died so tragically, he must kill Gong Qinshue with his own hands to comfort Sitong's soul in heaven. But now, not to mention saving Gong Qinshue's sword, even Gong Qinshue herself might not be able to win. How could he have the face to talk about revenge? Uncle Rabbit Lantern. Little Bao hugged the fat rabbit and raised his little head. There are still many pills left. Chapter 638. This narrow-minded man, it's fine if he says that Chang Yu has improper thoughts about her, but now he's even jealous of Bai Chen. Xiao Bao immediately echoes, narrow-minded. Di Mingju's face darkens all of a sudden. He picks Xiao Bao up, and somewhat gnashes his teeth as he says, Uncle Rabbit Lantern, you're calling me very affectionately. This little guy has never been this affectionate and good-tempered to him before. What Bai Chen? Could it be that he's better than she is to Yan Yan and Xiao Bao? Mu Yan sees the big and small staring at each other, and doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's just about to stop them. But she hears the sound of hurried footsteps rushing in from outside the room. Miss, something's wrong. Ru Yan kneels in front of Mu Yan, her face deathly pale. Hai Tang and Hao Yan are in trouble. A few days ago, Qi Yan Imperial Palace. The huge palace is filled with a strong medicinal fragrance. A handsome youth lies on the bed, his face deathly pale, his body full of silver needles. The muscles under the needles are trembling incessantly, bean-sized beads of sweat rolling down from his forehead, showing that he's suffering great pain. After a while, a beautiful woman standing next to him pulls out a needle, and carefully inserts 3 more. Because of this small action, the expression on the youth's face on the bed deepens, and he trembles even more violently. Liu Beiyu, who stands at the side, is so nervous that his whole body is stiff. His gaze unblinkingly falls on the youth, and anyone can see the anxiety in his eyes. The youth lying on the bed is the eldest prince of Qi Yan country, and also the crown prince, Luo Nantian. And the one treating him is Feng Haitang. When the last needle is inserted, Luo Nantian's body spasms, and he suddenly straightens up, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Big brother. Liu Beiyu rushes over in shock. Big brother, how are you? Don't scare me. Feng Haitang stands up and slowly exhales, a trace of relief in her eyes. Luo Nantian, who's being held in Liu Beiyu's arms, also slowly opens his eyes. He gives his younger brother a weak smile. Xiao Yu, don't worry, I'm much better now. Big brother, don't try to be brave. If you feel uncomfortable, you must tell me. Feng Haitang snorts coldly. She takes out the pill that Mayan gave her before she left and hands it to Luo Nantian. Are you doubting my medical skills by saying this? After swallowing the medicinal pill, Luo Nantian's complexion visibly improved. Moreover, his eyes, which were originally covered by a white veil, had now retreated quite a bit, revealing pure black pupils. How could Liu Beiyu not know that his elder brother's illness is much better? He is immediately overjoyed. Sister Haitang, you're really amazing. I can suspect anyone, but I can't doubt your medical skills. This compliment, Liu Beiyu, is sincere. Feng Haitang had not studied medicine for a long time, so she was not as experienced as Dr. Song and the others. She was even far from Chen Qingfeng's experience in refining medicine. Yet now, her medical skills had surpassed everyone in the longevity camp. Even his alchemy skills had almost caught up to Chen Qingfeng's. Dr. Feng, I've been ill for so many years, even those famous doctors couldn't cure me, yet you cured me so easily. This great kindness, I really don't know how to repay you. The youth on the bed slowly calms down, his gaze attentively fixed on Feng Haitang, his eyes full of gratitude and adoration. Chapter 639. And such feelings can easily transform into deep love. Liu Beiyu sees the affection in his big brother's eyes, and his heart thumps. It can't be, could it be that big brother likes Haitang Jie? That won't do. Haitang Jie is Boss Yan's. How could she be snatched away? He's about to speak, but he hears Feng Haitang faintly say, all the godly doctors couldn't cure you, because what you're suffering from isn't an illness, but poison. Poison. Hearing that, Liu Beiyu throws all his thoughts to the back of his mind, and exclaims, how could Big Brother be poisoned? What poison was it? Feng Haitang says, this kind of poison is very rare in the Yanwu continent. Naturally, I wouldn't know, nor would I know how to cure it. But in this world, there is one person who can, and can also refine the antidote. And what I did was to fuse the effects of the antidote with the poison in his body, so that the poison in His Highness's body could be resolved as soon as possible. Yes, Master. Liu Beiyu's face reveals a childlike expression, and he excitedly says, in this world, to be able to cure 100 poisons, to be able to revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones, there's only Master. Feng Haitang smiles and nods. But, how did Big Brother get poisoned? Liu Beiyu frowns. He's the crown prince of Qi Yan country, who would be so daring as to poison the future emperor of Qi Yan country. Luo Nanshan's eyes slightly narrow, revealing an awe-inspiring expression. Who else could it be? Naturally, it's someone who wants to replace me and sit on the throne. Just then, there's the sound of messy footsteps coming from outside the palace. Imperial brother, I heard that third brother has invited a famous doctor for you again. I don't know if there's any improvement in your illness this time. Along with the voice, a man dressed in gorgeous clothes swaggers in. His facial features and appearance are somewhat similar to Lu Beiyu and Luo Nantian, but the ruthlessness and craftiness in his eyes make his entire person seem a bit surly and sinister. Luo Qingfeng, what are you doing here? Lu Beiyu frowns, his eyes filled with disgust. The man who comes in sneers, third brother, I'm still your second brother. You don't even call me imperial brother, isn't that a bit too rude? After saying that, he shifted his gaze to Luo Nantian. Seeing the whites in his eyes receding, her pupils slightly shrank. Big brother, you look good. Could it be that your illness has been cured? I don't know which divine doctor treated me, but this prince would like to have a look. Luo Nanshan's face sank as he said, you are not welcome here. Please leave. Men, ask the second prince to leave. However, after this order was given, the entire palace was silent. The guards at the side all lowered their heads guiltily and slowly walked behind Luo Qingfeng. You guys. You actually. Luo Nantian growled in disbelief. Ha 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 ha. Imperial brother, just accept your fate. As the saying goes, a fine bird chooses a fine tree to nest in. These people have long known that there is no future for them to follow you, so they very cleverly chose to join me. Luo Nantian gritted his teeth and said, my illness has been cured. Chapter 640. Do you believe that if news of your death spreads out today, royal father wouldn't even investigate and would directly give me the position of crown prince? Just like back then, I planted the Wu Tu poison on your body, but no one would know. Ha ha ha. So it was you, you bastard, who poisoned Big Brother. I'm going to kill you. Lu Beiyu roared, suddenly pouncing forward and fiercely punching Luo Qingfeng's face. Luo Qingfeng's cultivation was at the peak of the Earth stage. In his impression, Lu Beiyu was only at the early stages of the Earth stage. That ignorant and incompetent third brother who only knew how to draw was not a threat to him. But he didn't expect that before Luo Qingfeng could react, he would feel a swift and fierce fist wind mix with boundless profound energy hitting him in the face. With a bang, Luo Qingfeng's entire body flew out, heavily hitting a pillar and letting out a painful groan. Lu Beiyu still wanted to pounce forward, but Luo Qingfeng's underlings had already reacted, blocking Lu Beiyu's attack. Your cultivation, how could you reach the peak of the Earth stage so quickly? Luo Qingfeng crawled up from the ground, looking at Lu Beiyu in disbelief. Lu Beiyu's fists cracked. You deranged bastard, to actually use such a ruthless hand on your own elder brother, I definitely won't let you go. Won't let me go. Ha ha ha, third brother, you're still as stupid as before. Luo Qingfeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, saying without a care, why won't you let me go? Just based on your meager skills, or based on the people beside you who have pretty good cultivations? But no matter how good they are, they're just a few heaven stages. But do you know how many people are outside this palace right now? The faces of everyone in the room changed. Luo Nanshan's voice suddenly rose, Luo Qingfeng, what do you want to do? Could it be that you want to rebel? I'm just taking back what belongs to me. Luo Qingfeng laughed sinisterly, you sickly bastard, you should have died long ago. I didn't do anything to you before because I wanted to see you linger on in pain for a while longer. But now, I don't want to wait any longer. So Luo Nantian, Lu Beiyu, you two pieces of trash obstructing me, obediently go to the netherworld. Lu Beiyu nervously looks at Feng Haitang, Sister Haitang, what should we do? From beginning to end, Feng Haitang's expression hasn't changed in the slightest, and the people from the Everlasting Camp and the Ink Camp behind her are still as calm as ever. The Nether Flame army had seen all kinds of battles. They really didn't care about a mere palace coup. Seeing Feng Haitang's calm expression, Liu Beiyu also calms down. Now, he's also a member of the Ink Camp. Moreover, he's also Mayan's apprentice. How can he be so useless and lose face for his master and little senior? However, Luo Nantian did not know. His face is full of anxiety. Disregarding his body's weakness, he gets down from the bed and stands in front of Liu Beiyu and Feng Haitang. Luo Qingfeng, if you want to kill then kill me. This has nothing to do with Xiao Yu and Dr. Feng. You can kill me and take the title of Crown Prince, but you can't touch them. Luo Qingfeng's eyes turned, suddenly landing on Feng Haitang. So you are the doctor that cured the aconitum poison. I did not think that you would be such a beautiful woman. Chapter 641. Saying that, Luo Qingfeng takes large strides forward, flips Luo Nantian over, and reaches out to touch Feng Haitang's face. Behind Feng Haitang, everyone is expressionless, even looking at Luo Qingfeng with pity in their eyes. Even Liu Beiyu sneered. Only Luo Nantian is so anxious that his eyes are red, actually wanting to throw himself at Luo Qingfeng and perish together with him. However, the next moment, a scene that makes him aghast occurs. Before Luo Qingfeng's hand can touch Feng Haitang's face, it's already pinned down, followed by several cracking sounds. Ah! A pig-like scream rings out in the palace. Luo Nantian looks in shock at Feng Haitang, this delicate beauty, who broke Luo Qingfeng's arm with her bare hands. It wasn't broken in two, but directly broken into 4 or 5 pieces. Feng Haitang pinches his arm, so soft that it can fold and twist at will, and says with a faint sneer, "What did you say you wanted to promise me?" Saying that, she raises her foot again and ruthlessly kicks him under his crotch, directly kicking him out. Another cracking sound is heard, making everyone in the palace feel a chill in their balls. Even the people from the Everlasting Camp and the Ink Camp show expressions of lingering fear, fearing that Commander Feng's foot will kick them in the future. Kill her, kill this slut for me. Luo Qingfeng awoke from the intense pain and realized that his limbs and right hand were both crippled. He immediately let out a beast-like roar, "Have the army come in immediately and flatten this palace. I want everyone in this house to die without a burial place. Especially this slut, I'll skin her alive and pull out her tendons, I want her to die a horrible death." Luo Qingfeng's confidant immediately blows a whistle. Outside the palace, the rumbling sound of hooves and footsteps comes in a line. And inside the palace, Luo Qingfeng's confidant, a dozen or so heaven stage experts and 2 pre-celestial experts, have already launched a fierce offensive against Feng Haitang and the people from the Ink Camp. Watching his subordinates surround Feng Haitang and the others, Luo Qingfeng shows a twisted smile. But immediately, a heart-wrenching pain comes from his crotch and arm, making his face turn incomparably sinister. "Bitch, just you wait. When you fall into my hands, I'll definitely get someone to play you to death." The uniformed footsteps outside the door were getting closer and closer. It was as if they were coming from the gods. The smile on Luo Qingfeng's face became even crazier. "My army has already arrived. Just wait for your deaths, ha ha ha." Feng Haitang frowned, her expression gloomy. Now that there were more than 10 heaven rankers and 2 innates, it was already very difficult for her to deal with them. If another great army came, the situation would be even more difficult. It seemed like he could only capture the ringleader to capture all his followers. Bang! Feng Haitang's palm collided with the Xiantian old man. A powerful internal force enters her body through her palm, and Feng Haitang's figure flies out like a kite with a broken string. However, in midair, she suddenly changed direction and flew towards Luo Qingfeng. Luo Qingfeng's expression changed drastically. "Protect the Emperor, protect the Emperor. Quickly cripple this slut for me." As soon as his voice fell, more than 10 Heaven Realm experts guarding Luo Qingfeng immediately formed a saber formation, their profound energy surging. As long as Feng Haitang falls, she's bound to be cut into pieces by the saber formation. And at this time, the enormous army has already poured into the main hall, arriving behind Luo Qingfeng. Luo Qingfeng shows an evil grin, about to speak. Suddenly, there's a flash of light before his eyes. Chapter 642. Feng Haitang only feels a familiar breath hitting her in the face. Her whole body suddenly stiffens, and she slowly raises her head in disbelief. What comes into view is Yan Haotian's face, covered with crisscrossed scars. Even if this face was intact, it wouldn't be considered handsome. Now that it's covered with scars, it's even more fierce and ugly, enough to stop a child from crying at night. But when Feng Haitang sees this face, tears suddenly rush to her eyes. Her entire heart was originally empty, but at this moment, it's filled up in an instant. This man always says that she's suited for a better one, that she's worthy of a better one. But when she needs someone, he's always the first to appear. Moreover, even if there are thousands and thousands of good men in this world, she, Feng Haitang, only loves this imperfect one in front of her. Feng Haitang reaches out, wraps her arms around the man's neck, and buries her face in his neck. "Ah, ah." A hoarse cry comes from the man's mouth. He seems to want to say something, but his missing tongue makes him unable to say a single word. But when Feng Haitang raises her head and sees the anxiety and worry on his face, she understands in a flash. That's a telepathic connection. Even if this man keeps running away, she still understands everything. "Don't worry, I'm fine." "Haotian, why are you here?" Yan Haotian doesn't respond to her, but puts her down, and carefully examines her from head to toe. After confirming that Feng Haitang isn't injured, he finally lets out a sigh of relief. That murderous look on his face, and the burning worry in his heart, slowly fades away. Soon after, his line of sight meets Feng Haitang's tender and affectionate eyes, slightly flushed. A woman's unique body fragrance burrows into the tip of his nose, and there's also that soft and delicate body sticking to him. Yan Haotian seems to suddenly realize something, and suddenly pushes Feng Haitang away in a panic. He makes hand gestures in a flurry, but because of his momentary panic, he's simply unable to clearly express his meaning. Feng Haitang is pushed away this time, but she doesn't have the slightest bit of anger or sadness. On the contrary, she bursts out laughing. "You thought something happened to me, so you rushed over to save me, right?" She looks around, and sees a dense crowd of Ink Camp soldiers pouring in. "They've brought at least half of the Ink Camp's people, right?" Yan Haotian was usually a very calm person. He would never act impulsively just because of a vague message from Ru Yen. However, because it involved his own safety, he acted in such an exaggerated manner. He lost his cool and his ability to think. Thinking of this, Feng Haitang couldn't stop the joy and sweetness in her heart. Even if Yan Haotian had returned to his usual unapproachable attitude, she would not feel the slightest bit depressed. Who are you people? Where is my army?" Only now did Luo Qingfeng realize that the people who rushed in were not the troops he had arranged to ambush outside. Instead, it was this group of strangers he had never seen before. "Your army?" Guan Hu laughed mischievously. With a stomp of his foot, a bloody head rolled in front of Luo Qingfeng. "Are you talking about this group of trash?" Luo Qingfeng lowered his head to look at the head that rolled over. His eyes abruptly widened and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Because that head belonged to one of his generals. The army outside was really led by him. Chapter 643. I'm sorry. Guanhu moves closer to Luo Qingfeng, his smile becoming even more devilish. When we just came in, we encountered a group of wastes obstructing us. We were idle and had nothing to do, so we warmed up a bit. Right now, the heads of these wastes are all piled up outside, piling up into a small hill. If you don't believe me, you can go take a look. You're lying. That's an army of 20,000. How could it be? How could it be? Luo Qingfeng shouts himself hoarse, as if this can prove that all of this is just a dream, that it's impossible for him to be defeated so thoroughly. However, after his subordinate rushes out, stumbles back in and says something that shatters all of his delusions. Dead, the second prince, they're all dead. Guanhu opens his mouth, his smile exceptionally simple and honest, but there's a fierce cold light in it. The wastes outside are all dead. Now it's your turn. You dare to covet our boss's woman, you tell me, how should you die? Don't. You can't kill me, I'm the second prince of Qi Yan country, the future emperor, you can't kill me. Luo Qingfeng desperately shakes his head and retreats, his mouth screaming hysterically. But the Ying camp's people have already killed until their eyes are red, how could they care about what he says? In just the blink of an eye, Luo Qingfeng's underlings have already been completely cut down. Right now, he's so scared that his face is deathly pale, he even forgets the pain in his body as he desperately screams for mercy. Big brother, third brother, I'm your relative after all, I beg you to save me. If I die, you won't be able to explain it to Imperial Father, right? Boo-hoo-hoo, big brother, third brother, save me ah. Luo Qingfeng tumbles and crawls in front of Lu Beiyu and Luo Nantian. Right now, there's no longer the arrogance and complacency he had when he first came in. He cuts a sorry figure, snot and tears overflowing, constantly looking back at Lu Beiyu and Luo Nantian. Big brother, you've always been the kindest, you'll spare me, right? You also don't want Imperial Father to think that we're killing each other, right? Luo Qingfeng is well aware of Luo Nantian's character, so he grabs his clothes and keeps begging. Luo Nantian doesn't speak, but Lu Beiyu panics. Big brother, you mustn't be deceived by him. If it weren't for this person, you wouldn't have been so sick for so many years and almost lost your life. Big brother, I won't do it again. I won't do it again. Big brother, believe me. Luo Qingfeng clutched Luo Nantian's clothes tightly as he cried, in the future, I will obediently be a prince. I will definitely not steal your limelight. Believe me. Luo Nantian looked at his face covered in tears and snot, his hand hanging limply, and his lower body covered in blood. He knew that this younger brother of his was already crippled. He had always had a benevolent personality. He had just hated his younger brother to the bone, but now that he saw his brother in such a miserable state, he couldn't bear it anymore. No matter how bad this person was, he was still related to him by blood, and now he knew that he was wrong. Luo Nantian sighed softly and bent down, wanting to help Luo Qingfeng up. Just at this moment, a cruel and cold light flashed in Luo Qingfeng's eyes. He suddenly rose up and grabbed at Luo Nantian's clothes. At some point, a dagger had appeared in his hand, and he quickly pressed it against Luo Nantian's neck. Big brother. Lu Beiyu's complexion changes and he rushes over. Chapter 644. Ha ha ha. Idiot. I just knew that you idiot would fall for it again. Luo Qingfeng glanced at Luo Nantian, who was taken as a hostage, and laughed in an exceptionally carefree manner. Even at this time you still believe in brotherly respect. What a joke. But my good big brother, it is all thanks to your rotten kindness that I was able to escape this time. I, your little brother, will remember this favor. Wait until the day I sit on the throne, I will leave you and third brother a complete corpse, ha 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 ha. G.A. Luo Qingfeng's voice came to a screeching halt. Soon after, his body began to twitch incessantly. A large amount of blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. Immediately after, with a clang, the saber in his hand fell to the ground and his entire body convulsed as he fell to the ground. Luo Nantian had yet to recover from the shock of being kidnapped by his little brother. Feng Haitang took a few steps forward and coldly glanced at him. Don't you know that many times, being kind to your enemy is being cruel to yourself? As the crown prince of a country, you are actually so soft-hearted. Being reprimanded so mercilessly, Luo Nantian was not the slightest bit angry. Instead, his entire face was filled with shame and gratitude. Feng. Miss Haitang, thank you. You saved me once again. This time, Luo Nanshan's gaze towards Feng Haitang was already filled with undisguised affection. Seeing this scene, Yan Haotian felt as if his chest was being pierced by needles, causing his face to turn deathly pale. Boss. Guan Hu cried out in a low voice and anxiously whispered into Yan Haotian's ear, "Oh no, boss, you seem to have a love rival. Furthermore, it's an extremely beautiful gigolo. He's also the crown prince of a country, the future emperor. Boss, you have to act a little faster. Otherwise, sister-in-law will really be snatched away." Yan Haotian did not speak, but his hands unconsciously clenched into fists. At this moment, an irrepressible killing intent and irritation welled up in his heart. He wished that he could throw out Luo Nantian, whose eyes were glued to Haitang. But immediately after, his body fiercely shook and he slowly revealed a bitter smile. What qualifications did he have to feel heartache? What qualifications did he have to be jealous? The one who kept pushing Haitang away, wasn't it him? He kept telling Haitang to find a better man. Wasn't he the one she married? Now, Haitang really found a better man. Shouldn't he be happy for Haitang? Luo Qingfeng was actually poisoned by Feng Haitang just now. At this time, the poison took effect. After experiencing a period of torment worse than death, Luo Qingfeng finally breathed his last. Feng Haitang revolved her profound energy. With a wave of her palm, the poisonous gas that was entangled in Luo Qingfeng's body immediately flew out and returned to her palm. Looking at the dark red mark on his palm, Feng Haitang felt sincere admiration. She was the leader of the Longevity Battalion and the one with the lowest cultivation base among the 4 commanders. In order to balance her fighting ability, Mu Yan specially gave her such a weapon, flowing light damask. This weapon was made by combining the larvae of the golden silkworm with various medicinal ingredients. It could be used as a whip to attack, or it could silently corrode the opponent as a poisonous gas. To Feng Haitang, this was the best weapon. In this world, perhaps only the young miss could develop such a unique weapon and was willing to put in the effort to research it for them. Chapter 645. Unconsciously, for her and Yan Haotian, that place has already become a home, a place they want to return to at any time. Unfortunately, the poison in Luo Nanshan's body hasn't been completely removed, so he has to stay for a few more days. Having thoroughly dealt with Luo Qingfeng, Feng Haitang immediately returns to Yan Haotian's side. Haotian, once Luo Nanshan's poison is completely removed, we'll go back to Hellflame Valley. After being gone for so long, I'm starting to miss Mississippi. Yan Haotian expressionlessly looks at her, making a hand gesture. You stay here, I'll go back to Hellflame Valley first. I'll leave half of the people from the ink camp for you. What? Feng Haitang's complexion suddenly changes. You're not going back with me. Yan Haotian's expression still doesn't change, coldly continuing to make hand gestures. I'm not needed here. But there's someone here who needs you. It's good for you to stay here. Feng Haitang stares blankly. following Yan Haotian's line of sight to Luo Nantian. She sees Luo Nantian immediately turn away in panic after meeting her gaze. The youth's fair face shows a bashful blush. As a crown prince, Luo Nantian really is a very kind person. He may not be able to kill decisively, unable to become an eternal emperor, but as long as he has good civil and military officials to assist him, such a benevolent emperor is bound to be a blessing for the people of a country. And the woman who can marry this man will certainly be very happy. Feng Haitang suddenly seems to understand something. She turns her head towards Yan Haotian in disbelief, using a hoarse and trembling voice to say, "Yan Haotian, what you're saying right now is the truth." It's hard to suppress the tears in her beautiful eyes, her chest heaving up and down violently. Feng Haitang only feels like she's going to explode from anger. Yan Haotian sees the tears in her eyes, his heart suddenly aching. He can't make the hand gesture he was about to make. Seeing this, Guanhu promptly comes over, beaming, "Miss Feng, don't listen to our boss's nonsense, he's a typical hypocrite. Just now, when he saw you walking so close to the crown prince, his eyes almost popped out. What's more, if you're here, how could our boss be willing to leave? You don't know, when he heard you had an accident, our boss went crazy, he didn't eat or sleep." "Ah! Boss, why did you hit me?" "I'm telling the truth." Hearing Guanhu's words and looking at Yan Haotian's obviously awkward and flustered expression, Feng Haitang feels a little better. Luo Xiaoyu, we came from afar and fought again. We're exhausted. Hurry up and arrange a place for us and boss to stay." "That's right, we're here to protect Miss Feng, so you must arrange for our accommodations to be closer to Miss Feng." As Guanhu speaks, he winks at Liu Beiyu. Liu Beiyu instantly understands, "Don't worry, brother Hu, I'll let people arrange it. I guarantee that you'll all be satisfied." As he spoke, he glanced at his elder brother and shook his head. Although Big Brother liked Sister Haitang, Sister Haitang was destined to be their big brothers. Therefore, Big Brother's love affair could only come to an end. 3 days later. "Your First Highness, the poison in your body has been completely removed." Feng Haitang takes back the silver needles, slowly saying, "Next, as long as you use drafts to nurse yourself well, you'll be able to recover." Chapter 646. As the ruler of a country, you cannot lose your vigilance. I hope you will remember this. Luo Nantian sat up from the bed, but he did not check his body. Instead, he stared at Feng Haitang. "Miss Haitang, are you leaving?" Feng Haitang nodded her head. "We were invited by Xiao Yu to treat your illness. Now that you have recovered, it is time for us to return. What if I say that I beg you to stay?" Luo Nantian stood up and walked 2 steps towards Feng Haitang. "Haitang, I have never felt such strong emotions for a girl like I do for you. If you are willing to stay and be my consort, I promise that I will treat you well for the rest of my life and will never look at another woman again. Haitang, are you willing to stay for me?" Feng Haitang was stunned as she stared at the youth in front of her. He stood 2 meters away from her, maintaining the safest and most respectful distance for a girl. There was no forceful aggression or repression, but his eyes burned with passion. That pair of eyes that had regained their black color after being detoxified were so clear, without any impurities. It was easy to believe that his feelings were real, without a trace of lies. No one could belittle such a sincere feeling, and no one would not be moved. But after being moved, Feng Haitang quickly recovered and shook her head. "Sorry, I cannot promise you. Because I already have someone I like." The light in Luo Nantian's eyes dimmed. He smiled bitterly and said softly, "Actually, I already knew that this would be the outcome. But this is the first time I have met a girl I like. If I don't try, I will not be satisfied. Haitang, do you like that man called Yen Haoyan? Feng Haitang blushed, revealing a rare shyness of a young girl, but she still nodded. He is my fiancé. Although he doesn't want to admit it, in my heart, he is the only man I want to marry in this life. He is really blessed. Luo Nantian muttered. He wanted to smile, but he could not hide the sadness on his face. Feng Haitang looked at the sadness in his beautiful eyes and couldn't bear it. She said softly, Your Highness, thank you for your love. But in fact, your feelings for me might just be because I saved you from the clutches of the disease. It was a kind of instantaneous empathy and impulse. But you are a good person, I believe that you will definitely find your other half. Luo Nantian did not say anything. Instead, he smiled and nodded. The two of them faced each other in silence. At this moment, a figure passed by the window. Luo Nantian suddenly stepped forward and hugged Feng Haitang. Startled, Feng Haitang was about to push him away when she heard Luo Nantian say, Don't move. The person who just walked by is your fiancé. Feng Haitang's long eyelashes trembled. She heard Luo Nantian continue, I can tell that your fiancé likes you but is unwilling to accept you. Haitang, why don't we put on a show to provoke him? If he really has feelings for you, then I wish the two of you a happy life together. But if he still refuses to come to his senses, then he doesn't deserve to have you. When that time comes, I hope that you can give me a chance. Chapter 647. Then, she feels the temperature in the room suddenly drop, as if the air is suppressing a cold killing intent, ready to explode at any time. Feng Haitang quivers, pushes Luo Nantian away and rushes out. In the distance, she sees Yen Haoyan's back quickly leaving. That figure is indistinct, almost disappearing, but it's filled with endless despair and loneliness. Feng Haitang can't bear it anymore. She suddenly steps forward and chases after him like lightning. Luo Nantian looks at Feng Haitang's disappearing figure and slowly exhales, revealing a bitter smile. Big brother, I already told you, the one Haitang, Jia likes is our boss. Lu Beiyu pops out of nowhere and pats Luo Nantian's shoulder, comforting him, don't think about it anymore. Give up as soon as possible, lest you get hurt deeper. Luo Nantian retracts his gaze and looks at Lu Beiyu, rubbing his head, Xiaoyu has grown up. That naughty and mischievous boy now knows how to teach big brother a lesson. Hee hee. I got a good master, of course I'll make progress. Lu Beiyu says shamelessly, Big brother, wait until I return from master, then I'll be your general. In the future, I'll help you protect your country. And I believe that Big brother's future empress will be the best woman in the world. Big brother, you'll be in love with her and live happily ever after. The dim light in Luo Nantian's eyes gradually brightens and he slowly nods. Feng Haitang chases for a long time but still can't catch up to Yen Haoyan. Yen Haoyan's cultivation is higher than hers. Running at full speed, it's impossible for her to catch up. Finally, Feng Haitang stops and yells, Yen Haoyan, stop for me. The figure in front of her slowly stops. Feng Haitang jumps in front of him and looks up at him. The man's face is expressionless, as if he doesn't care about what he just saw. Feng Haitang grits her teeth. What if he really doesn't care? Why did he release such a strong killing intent? Why did he run away? Yen Haoyan, tell me, what did you just see? Don't you have anything to say to me? Yen Haoyan looked down at the girl's slightly blushing beautiful face. His eyes flashed, and after a long while, he gestured with his hands, Congratulations, you will soon be Qi Yen country's princess. Feng Haitang's body shook violently, and her eyes reddened again. You actually congratulated me. Don't you have anything else to say besides congratulations? Yan Haotian's hands trembled. Then, he gestured again. He's a good man. He won't let you down. He won't let me down. So you want to push me to someone else? Then have you ever asked me what I want? Feng Haitang could no longer hold back her tears as they rolled down her cheeks. Yan Haotian, you bastard. Yan Haotian reached out to touch her face and gently wiped her tears. The heartache and despair in his eyes made people realize how deep the feelings hidden in the man's heart were. But immediately, he seemed to realize something. He hurriedly withdrew his hand and wanted to leave. But how could Feng Haitang let him escape? She grabbed his hand and suddenly leaned forward to bite his lips. Yan Haotian groaned in pain. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.